Hey everyone, you're listening to the Active Turnkey Podcast, a podcast designed for hands-off, passive real estate rental investors. In the Active Turnkey Podcast, you'll hear Tom Olson and Jared Stoutmeister discuss all things turnkey rentals with other turnkey providers, service providers, and rental investors. Our goal is to help you reach your financial freedom and whatever comes after that. Let's go. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Active Turnkey Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Stoutmeister, and I have with us the Tom Olson.
That's me.
And we're back. And today's podcast...
We're right at the first of the year, Jared. Did you have a good Christmas?
We did. It was festive. And tears were flowing and gifts were flying. I always like to throw wrapping paper at people. So I do it. I threw it at my sister, my kids.
I can see that.
Sister-in-laws, for sure. But I feel like that's kind of my...
We haven't gotten together yet, Jared, as a family, but our family always gets together around New Year's for Christmas. Jared's my brother-in-law, if you didn't know that, and Jared's great as a brother-in-law. It's always the sister-in-laws that you always have issues with. They're always I don't know, but just kidding. My sister-in-laws, except for my sister-in-laws, my sister-in-laws are amazing.
Mine are okay. No. We share some of those.
At our Christmas party, my wife actually got the award for Shut Up Jared. She got the Shut Up Jared award. I don't know how she got that, but apparently she tells Jared to shut up quite often.
Daily. Yeah.
Well, we are going to get into today's podcast. I know you guys are all interested in our personal lives and all that, and I know we just like to be vulnerable and let you guys know that we are real people. We have real skin. See this? We have real skin. I have a real wedding ring. Yeah. I just celebrated 25 years of marriage. I'm excited about that. But we're going to talk this episode about 2022 and kind of recap the year for our companies, and then looking forward to 2023. Next episode, I'm actually going to do an episode on setting goals and reaching goals and how do you actually reach your goals. So make sure that you guys tell your friends about the next episode. Give us a 5-star rating. Give us a review. Tell everybody. Tell all your friends about us. Unless you're trying to keep all the active turnkeys for yourself. I'm sure there's probably some of those people out there. They don't want to tell their friends.
Yes, I've had some. There are a lot of guys who love to refer. So we do have a referral program for those of you who have maybe other people you know who want to buy. The cat's out of the bag, folks. And so we do have a referral program. But other people will say, why would I do that? That just brings more competition for my deals. And
you got it.
To each his own. So that's going to be a little bit of what we talked about. So what we will talk about. In 2022, that mindset could have made sense because...
There wasn't very many properties available.
The first half of the year, the market was insane. It's been insane for about a year and a half leading up to that, to the midway point of 2022. We talked about it many times. You throw out a price, you got it in the weekend. And that means the next deal you have in that area, you raise it $5,000.
And it's interesting because for us, we were trying, I am not the person that wants to sell anybody a property that 3 or 4 years later, they're going to come back and be like, oh, it's worth less than I bought it for.
Sure.
So as a mindset for our own company, I said, hey, I'd rather sell those houses retail. Even though we had lots of buyers that would have paid maybe $180, $190 for those same houses, we just kind of overall said we're not going to sell as, some of them make sense. And there are some of them that I really believe still have runway. And at some point, maybe they're going to be worth $200,000-$300,000. And I was happy to sell some of those. Like for instance, some of these really nice brick homes, that we have in certain areas. I think those houses got future runway, and so I was kind of okay with those ones. But when the market was getting exuberant, I didn't want to sell those houses to our investors. I just felt like as a moral obligation, I would much rather sell those to the retail market where owning it as their own personal property residence and living in the property. At maybe buying it a little bit higher than what real value is, but because the rates were so low, now they're locked into a really low interest rate. They're going to pay the same amount of money or less maybe with the super low interest rates that we saw over 2020 and 2021. So as a company, and in my mindset, really as a leader owner of the company, I really wanted to kind of be mindful of that. And I'm always concerned about that. I'm always concerned about, and I always tell Jared, hey, like if an investor walked through this house, what would they say? What would they want? Could I have a good explanation for, them buying this property? And I want to make sure we have that. So there's been many houses where we decided not to sell to our investors because of that. We're very mindful of that. And we want to make sure that we do right by our investors.
Another thing, one of our focuses has been for a long time. We were the first turnkey provider in Gary. And so we were blazing a trail in different places. There were some where people were selling some properties, but not. There were some areas where Olson Group was setting the market, and we actually have had some areas even recently that we've done that. And by doing this focus, we were able to have a lot of impact in areas in Gary and help raise values, change the face of a block or a neighborhood by doing these rehabs like we did, to the point where some of these houses were over finished in a sense. And so while we weren't necessarily able to send all these, or these didn't make sense in some cases, like Tom said, you could have bought some of them, but that did for the neighborhood is actually going to help everyone long term. So just getting a foothold in there, setting some markers as far as property values, that definitely was part of what we wanted to do. One of Tom's visions for Gary, and he can elaborate on this, but is to make Gary a place where people want to live. And so we believe we had a big impact, along with many other investors as well. But we were able to have quite a bit of impact there.
Absolutely. So to kind of recap, right, 2022, at the beginning of the year, I would say the majority, at least 75% of our houses were being sold on the retail market. And like Jared just said, I believe that selling retail and having homeowners in neighborhoods is good for the neighborhood as well. True. So to help the neighborhood, I think there's two sides of that. But I think raising the bottom always raises everybody, so raising the rental standard, raising all that also will help. And that's what we've been doing and what we've been focusing on really since we started this. Also, you talked about blazing the trail in Gary, Indiana. And I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I'm glad that I have a company and great people here that work for me that are on board with that mission in that initiative. But also, we've kind of blazed the trail in some other areas as well. I don't believe anybody else that I know of, I know a lot of national turnkey providers that did active turnkey before we did. We kind of coined the phrase. We went out there and bought the domains, and we did everything for active turnkey. And it really is BRRRR. I understand that. And BRRRR's been around for a while. I didn't invent BRRRR. But I did kind of connect the two from you doing BRRRR all on your own to having a provider, having a turnkey provider, having an operator, whatever you want to call us, that kind of help do it with you, do it for you to a certain degree, do it with you. So we do BRRRR for you, but we kind of do that whole process with you. And we really have, honestly, I feel like blazed that trail. And now it's funny because I start hearing other people call it active turnkey, and I'm like, guess what? I know 100% sure we came up with that phrase, and we coined that phrase. And I even had a trademark thing on it, and I don't know exactly what happened. Apparently, I didn't do something 100% right with the trademarking on that whole thing. There's parts of it I own, and part of it is in limbo. I don't really know, but I do know that we own a lot of the rights to it. And if you search active turnkey, you're going to find us. You're probably not going to find too many other people, which honestly kind of means that we do, have that phrase in reality. But so we've blazed a trail in both of those things. But this year has been an interesting year because we've kind of gone from 75% retail to kind of flipping that to 75% turnkey now. And it's also gotten to the point where we can sell and we can do active turnkey again. And I'm really excited about it. So it's been a good year for us. I kind of think at the beginning of the year we made a shift in June, like way earlier than everybody else in the country. We saw a lot of this. I was actually afraid more in January and more in February, and then when I kind of started to see what was going to happen it's always more afraid. You always have more fear when you see the storm clouds and when you're kind of in the storm, to a certain degree. And I kind of feel like we're already in the storm now. And back then we were kind of seeing all these storm clouds happening and trying to figure out what was going to happen. And I feel like we have a little bit, even though we're in the storm today, and I feel like we're in a recession, we kind of at least kind of feel what it feels like in the storm. And we don't know exactly how far it's going to go or how bad it's going to be in the future, but we can definitely kind of know where we're at today. And I find more peace in that sometimes, kind of being in that storm, knowing how you feel now and understanding what's going on in the market. We're seeing the fact that we're also able to get, we talked about this a couple podcasts ago, where now we're able to get better deals. And now I believe we're able to pass those deals on to our investors, and you guys get to enjoy that.
Yeah, and so again, transparency, 75% of our inventory was going retail. So if in June we're making that call, with what we do, that takes time to transition over
that ship. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so you have properties that were acquired for that strategy, and you had projects that were ongoing or beginning with that strategy, and so you almost had to have a complete turnover from all of that and to jump in. And so it wasn't until I would say beginning of quarter four, that we're full speed ahead into the active turnkey and turnkey model, which just should help everybody in 2023. So projecting forward, we expect for that 75% number, maybe even higher, to be either active turnkey or turnkey. And a few things we can discuss. One of our goals has always been adding different types of opportunities for our clients. And so over the years, for some of those guys who had purchased properties from us 5, 6, 7 years ago, our product looks significantly different. We've improved those areas. And so for us, the focus this year has also been in adding good quality contractors that we work with, subs, vendors, and employees. And so we believe that from that perspective, we're about as healthy as we've ever been when it comes to our team, the scalability of the team. We brought in a licensed plumber this past year. So our subs and our team is about as healthy as it can be, or as it has been, I should say. We still have room to go, but all that is trending forward to the opportunity where now moving forward, and Tom can attest to this, but being in construction, if you're flipping a house, you're looking at a 10 to 12 to 14 week rehab. Turnkeys should be less. We should be looking more on average like 6 to 8 or maybe 4 to 8. And so that just means the project should churn out faster and more, and you should have more deals coming out to you. So if you're one of those buyers and you're like, I just can't do it, you're going to miss out an opportunity from Olson Group or One Group over the next year, and they're going to start coming out hot and heavy here real soon.
Absolutely. So we're excited about that. I do think, looking forward to 2023 a little bit more, we are changing our branding from Olson Group Network to the One Group Network. And that's going to kind of transcend through our construction company. So the construction company, instead of it being Olson Construction Management Services, will be One Construction One Construction Management, and then Olson Property Services. A little bit more of a change on Olson Property Services will be One Property Solution. We kind of liked that name there, and I think that One Property Solution kind of sums up a turnkey operator as well. So we kind of like that as well. So that's the only name changes that we're doing. So on that front, you will maybe see a little bit of that kind of coming down in the future. We're not going to do this all at once where we turn on a switch and it happens all at once. It's going to kind of happen over time. I don't really have any great need to do this. It's just more of future focused and kind of coaches that have coached me in certain ways and said, hey, you might want to think about this. It was Jared's recommendation. Just kidding. But anyways, we're looking forward to that. I'm excited about that move as well. But also looking forward into the next year, I really do believe that we're starting to see a little bit more insight on maybe where the Fed will be with interest rates. And I think we're also starting to see where the economy could start to see a little bit of deflation, and we might actually see some prices go down. We're starting to see gas prices kind of trickle down. We haven't seen gas prices under $3 for a long time, and we're starting to see that now. We're starting to see them pop up at $2.99, $2.89, and again, we're in one of the more expensive parts of the country. Believe it or not, I don't know how this is possible when we have a massive BP Amoco plant right here in our back door, in our backyard. But even in places like Florida, it's way cheaper in Florida than it is here. I know it's not California, so I know if we have listeners in California, you're like, you don't feel sorry for anybody because I know you're still $7, but that's because you voted in Gavin Newsom. Sorry, political. Let's stay away from that. Anyways, but I'm sure none of our listeners did that. Oh, of course. But anyways, I will say I do think we're starting to see a little bit more potential. The economy, I believe, I'm not going to say it's going to get better. I actually think it might still get worse. But I really do believe that you're going to, I think normally when the economy goes bad, that's when, the Fed lowers interest rates. That's when interest rates go lower. They try to entice you. And there's even, some articles that have come out with BlackRock and some very powerful companies out there, that own hundreds of billions of dollars in assets that are starting to be critical, and I don't believe that Powell is willing to accept that criticism for too long. I just don't. I don't think he has that. I do believe he likes to hear himself speak, and I do believe that he's enjoying all of this attention that he's getting right now, which I get it. But I still think that I actually believe there will probably be a loosening or at least quantitative easing happen maybe first, second quarter of next year. I don't know that it's going to be a super fast trip. I don't think it's going to be like, oh, let's just dump interest rates super fast. But I believe if interest rates just stayed stable for a period of time, I think that could actually be good for the economy and good for really everybody. Because right now with them tightening for so long, it's just like fear. More fear gets put into that market. And it starts making everything more expensive for everybody to do pretty much anything. And that's not really incentivizing new growth. It's decentivizing new growth. So if we could see any kind of loosening either way with quantitative easing or rates, we could definitely, start seeing a massive push. I actually think if they were to start lowering interest rates too fast, it could turn into a massive bubble. And that's what we've seen. We've seen a lot of these knee-jerk reactions over the last couple of years. They lower too fast, they lower too high, they raise too fast, they don't lower when they should. I mean, I believe everybody even was saying last year they probably should have started tightening quicker than they did. But we were still kind of in this, COVID season. And, I'm not going to go political there, but I will just say I still believe the response to the pandemic in some ways was way worse than what the pandemic would have been if we would have just had a level head throughout that whole thing. But I think looking forward, I think we're definitely in a recession, and that's fine. But this is when good investors invest, because investors invest based on non-emotional and on what the numbers say. And I believe that we're given better numbers right now to our investors than we ever had. Even with the high interest rates, they're still cash flowing the same as they were cash flowing last year with lower interest rates. So I think there's a lot to be said about that. And I think that if you're an investor and you're looking for a good place to put your money, we want to be a good steward of that. And that's one of our core values is stewardship. And we do believe that we want to get better at being a good steward. We don't think that we have arrived and we know it all. We have a lot of experience. We do have a lot of connections, but we are still getting better every single day. We have ups and downs, just like you do in your business, and your business has, and your different people have. But if you're looking for a good place to be able to invest, I do believe that Indiana as a whole. Maybe let's talk about that, Jared. We're still seeing people move from Illinois to Indiana. It's kind of just been a trend. Illinois is probably the most broke state in our nation, even more broke, believe it or not, than California. And people just continue to move out of that state. And they're like, we are the only economic place or economic MSA. We're not really an MSA. The problem is we get lumped into Chicago with so many different MSA statistics that we are like the first stop. We're the first place that people go. If they're coming over here. It's kind of like, so if you see all these people coming across the border in Mexico to Texas, a lot of them, what happens? They just sit in those border towns. They never go much farther. They just go within an hour in or within a half an hour in even. And that's kind of where they stay. That's kind of what we are to Chicagoland, which is one of the largest cities in the country. I think we're still the third largest city, 9 million person MSA right here in Chicago, Illinois. And as much as I don't like Chicago and Cook County, whatever you want to call it there, I will not invest in Cook County. I won't do it. My acquisitions department asked us today, hey, do you want to start bidding on these houses? We said no. Like, I don't want to own an asset there. I don't believe in the state. I don't believe it's a good state. But just as much as I don't believe in Illinois, I believe in Indiana. And I believe in Northwest Indiana because of what we have here. We've got a really great area. I believe the proximity to Chicago gives us benefits. And we don't really get the down things that Chicago has. We don't have super high taxes. We don't have the crime that they have. We don't have some of the other things that they have. And I think it's a great place to be able to grow up. And I think it's one of the best rental markets in the entire country. And most people don't know about us because we're not our own MSA. If you're looking for a good place, we would love to have you. And we would love to, honestly, we also have people that come here to the office probably once a month, sometimes 2 times a month. People will come to the office. They'll come look at properties with us. We want to invite you to come and do that if you'd like. I do this myself personally. If I'm going to go and invest with somebody or if I'm going to go invest in a new market, I want to go look at it and I kind of want to feel it a little bit and don't just talk to me and Jared. Or don't just talk to Jared. Come and talk to, Heather, who's going to make sure that all the checks get written out, and Cheryl, who's going to make sure she manages your property, or maybe even talk to Keith, who's going to, be the person that's managing maybe some of the rehabs or whatever it is. Like, come out, talk to us, see who we are and what we're all about. We are trying to be as transparent as we can. We never claim perfection. True. But except for Jared. Jared's perfect.
I don't claim it all the time. Every once in a while.
Just sometimes. Yep. But I will tell you, I can tell you that we are genuine and we do try to do the best we possibly can.
Yeah, no, that's excellent stuff. And so again, this podcast was focused on recapping 2022 and then projecting the next year. We're saying there's definitely some issues in the economy, and that's real. But with that it has opportunities, and we believe that this is about as good of a position we've been in to be able to provide opportunities over the last few years. And so if you're looking for a new place to invest, we would recommend you come. Like you said, you can visit our website at Buy Olson Group, or go email me at jared@buyolsongroup.com. And you can get our list. You can see our inventory as we send it out. And also, if you're a little leery of Northwest Indiana, you've heard of Gary and you don't know all about it, like Tom said, come and visit us in person. We'll host you. I'll take you out, show you the areas. You'll get to meet the team and touch the product, the houses themselves, and then see what the area looks like. Is it as described on Bigger Pockets by people who've never been here, or is it what does it look like? So I'd be able to help you with that. And of course, from there, we can help you build your portfolio. We do build rental portfolios for investors. So we appreciate you joining us today on the Active Turnkey podcast.
And honestly, I'll throw this out there. If you're here long enough, now if you just come in for a day, probably not going to be able to make this happen. But if you're here long enough, you can drive by my house in Gary, Indiana. I'm just going to tell you
yourself
that.
Blessed.
I am just going to tell you that. So I wanted to mention one thing. I know we're projecting forward, and a lot of time we talk about big picture, but I kind of wanted to get into a little bit more nuts and bolts. I'm going to tell you, if you do take the truck out and you go look at my property, which is in Gary, Indiana, and me and my wife decided to move in Gary, Indiana, we felt that, hey, if we want to make the city great again, we want to build it up, we want to make it where people want to move to instead of move away, that we figured, hey, we're not only going to put our office in Gary, Indiana, but we're going to live there ourselves as well. I don't believe any any orphanage that's want to build an orphanage in Tanzania can actually have an orphanage in Tanzania and be here in the United States, right? You got to be there. Somebody's got to be there, boots on the ground, right in the neighborhood, and they're making that neighborhood better, and that's what me and my wife are doing. So I'd encourage you, come drive by my house. If I'm available, I'll host you as much as I possibly can. But I'm gonna take us a little step farther. The area that we purchased in is an area called Horace Mann. It is right by the hospital in Gary, Indiana, and these are older homes. Our house was built in 1921. I actually have a brick frame. So I have a brick frame home. It's about 18 to 21 inches thick of brick all the way up, 2 stories, actually 3 stories. It is. It's like a bomb bunker there. But I'm going to tell you, so some of the houses that we have coming up are in those areas. And I just wanted to let you know that a lot of times, there's going to be some instances where maybe we don't do everything we would have done in a typical, little tiny slab home. But I'm telling you, I believe that I've kind of put my stamp in this a little myself personally. Look, some of the time these older windows that were built in the 50s or 40s and they were redone and they're nice. They're actually nicer. They will outlast these new vinyl windows by decades because they're just better quality built. And anybody that's been around construction can testify to that. You understand that. You know that. So, and I'm not saying this is going to be a standard and new thing that we do across the board. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. There might be a couple properties that we believe are in that particular area, right? It's not going to be in the Etna area. It's not going to be in some of the other areas that we know, in order to get values up, you've got to do certain things. But we're doing this on purpose. It's kind of calculated because I believe in that particular area. And Jerry, you can chime in here as well. I believe that those houses, they're bigger and they have a potential where when the next swing happens, and I know I'm having I'm way future forecasting here, but I believe at some point, we'll come out of this recession. And at some point, I think we have a big, steep climb that we're going to happen again here with real estate. And I actually think the next bubble may be like a massive bubble that gets created just because of how much cash is still sitting out there in different people's accounts. There's people just waiting for this opportunity that's happening right now. So with that being said, I believe these houses may have the opportunity to really go way up in value. So for instance, my home, I'll be transparent with my own personal home. It appraised for $300,000, but if it was in any other area in Northwest Indiana, it'd be $600,000, $800,000 house. Maybe even, maybe $1 million in some areas. So I want you to think about that when you're making these decisions.
And that's $1 million in Northwest Indiana.
You may be thinking 125 to 150 for some of these houses. I love to get cash flow. Don't get me wrong. But I also know that I can make a lot more in appreciation if and when those times of the market happen. So when those times come, we want to be there for you. We want to be able to say, hey, your house went from $150,000 to $300,000. Hey, maybe it's time to refinance. Maybe it's time to sell that property at that point. And we really do want to be that full service operator that is helping you, kind of guide you and kind of help you through all that as well. And that's one of those areas I believe there's a lot of opportunity, and we're looking at it like that. Even my own personal portfolio, even the houses that we own and we hold, we're looking at holding houses in that particular area. And again, how many areas you get that are really close to the hospital? It is the hospital in Gary, Indiana, so I just want to throw that out there. I kind of want to just throw that out there. There might be some properties that maybe, and that's okay. Ask the questions. Let us tell you why, and maybe justify our decisions on what we would do if they're active turnkey. You can make the decision. Maybe you don't want to do that. If they're turnkey, you can also kind of think through that. But I wanted to throw that out there for you. There's some beautiful houses that we've got we already are either under contract with or we've already purchased that I know are going to be coming up soon. And I just wanted to throw that out there to you because I think we've got some good opportunity. Also, one more thing before we go.
Let's do it.
Next year, I have got a lot of other things going on in my world. So I am doing these free calls every single month on Zoom for investors. First of all, I want to invite you to come on those calls, and you can learn more about that at goodsuccess.com. And you can just sign up for the free calls and you'll just get an invite. They're free. It's not asking. There's a website also that you can go and watch old ones kind of like this as a podcast. We haven't made it into a podcast yet because I'm going to start taking clips of those. And me and Jared might actually even talk about some of those and be an introduction for some of those, or we might just use some of those as some future podcasts. Also, we do a free event each year called the Free for All event, and that's going to be next year, September 2023. It's going to be September 7th through 9th. And it's a great time to be able to come and see us and also be able to get great education from world-class national speakers, but also connect with other of our investors and other people, maybe some of our contractors or maybe other people that are in our network as well. Local investors as well will be there. I'm excited about that. You can find out more information about that also on the Good Success website, goodsuccess.com. But I just wanted to warn you, we're going to start throwing some of that content that we've created on this podcast to try to keep that drumbeat going and be able to offer more Active Turnkey podcasts to you guys next year.
Yes, that's one of the things I want to finish off on is we do have concerted focus toward our podcast this next year, so you should be seeing a whole lot of us and a little bit more, a little bit additional types of material coming your way. But we do believe it would be beneficial and helpful as you're looking to grow your portfolio. And so we hope you enjoyed us today. Hope this brought you value. If it has, give us a thumbs
5
up.
stars.
5 stars.
Thumbs up. Subscribe.
Like, share.
Follow. All those good things.
All the above. Active Turnkey.
The best way to buy rentals. Have a good day.
Olson Group Network makes no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional advice. Unless specifically stated otherwise, Olson Group Network does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast, and information from this podcast should not be referenced in any way to imply such approval or endorsement. Any third-party materials or content of any third-party site referenced in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions, standards, or policies of Olson Group Network. Olson Group Network assumes no responsibility or liability for the accuracy or completeness of the content contained in third-party materials or on third-party sites referenced in this podcast or the compliance with the applicable laws of such materials and/or links referenced herein.